Hello all, and welcome to this afternoon's beer comparison review, which I'm going to dub the possible Carrington event review. So basically, there's a gigantic sort of sunspot that's just sending out a plume of solar radiation straight towards the Earth. Um, and they say it's like the biggest one in 20 years, but there's a small outside chance that it could be the biggest one in like 125 years or something, some extra 150 year 175 years really. And the last time one that happened that was that big, it basically fried telegraph stations and made it so you didn't even need to electrify like your telegraphs to go and like send messages, because there was just so much electromagnetic radiation in the atmosphere. um, like I said, there's a very small chance it'll be that big, according to scientists. But yeah. So basically, if a Carrington level sort of event happened now, that would basically fry the vast majority of the world's electronics on the surface. Anything that's not shielded and has a possibility of acting as its own antenna, and that would not be a good thing in our high-tech society. Yeah. So I've just ranted for like 90 seconds about like, well, stuff like that. But chances are it's not going to be that big. We're probably just going to have some sort of blackouts, probably some communications issues, as well as some of the nicest out of season aurora borealis that you can possibly see. And it's not going to just be in Seymour Skinner's kitchen. If you know what that joke is, good on you. Leave a comment below. Anyways, what are we comparing tonight? Well, we are comparing Kalihi beers, the local brewery, Hawaineken, versus actual Heineken. So yeah, this is a 16-ounce can. This is a 12-ounce can. Yeah, and let's just go and pour this out because I've already mucked up like like the original like first 2 minutes of this video. I just went and trashed it. I'm very tired. I had like an early morning training, and I woke up early 2 mornings in a row because someone who lives here thinks that it's fine to go and crush cans in the garage at the crack of freaking dawn. I might actually. I'm not the kind of person who complains about much, but yeah, that one's kind of getting on my nerves at this point. Yeah. So yeah, I'm going to go and pour these out, and let's get to comparing. Okay, pour out all 16 ounces there. And let's hurry. We're going to probably go with the head first, since on both of these, it kind of recedes pretty quickly. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. Okay, maybe poured this one a little bit too quickly here. Alrighty. So, coloration. Roughly about the same. Golden yellow. I would say the Hawaiian is slightly darker. Of course, that could be just because I'm using a thicker glass here, and it also looks like it's got a very slight chill haze to it, very slight, whereas the actual Heineken is crystal clear. Carbonation, yeah, the Heineken has much more visible carbonation, and I forgot I was supposed to nose this first. The Heineken is kind of like its head is almost completely gone yeah. I just added yeast to it apparently. Oh, this is not going well. So yeah, got some bready malts backed by pretty clear noble hopping, floral, herbaceous, not too spicy, more on the floral side. To the Heineken here. Yeah, not much hops in the nose, comparatively speaking here. Let's go and see if we can pour the rest of this out already. So, yeah, the head very quickly dissipated on this. Partially, I guess, because I want to use a similar glass shape, and I had this one kind of sitting out. I did go and wipe it down, but maybe I didn't wipe it down enough. So yeah, that might be part of the problem there. But I would say that the Hawaineken does not produce as much head as the Heineken. Yeah, holding it up to the light. Yeah, it's a little bit more, now that the sun's shining. Kind of see the Hawaineken is a little bit darker. And I realize now that I didn't go and pour myself out a glass of water. This comparison review is just going off the rails. I blame my exhaustion on that. Okay. Now, yeah, onto the palate now, shall we? Because it's already 6.5 minutes in. Okay, we're going to start with the Hawaineken first. Actually, no, let's start with the Heineken first. Um, okay, kind of malt, lightly bitter up front. Lasting top note of and more malt. Maybe a touch of old world hopping. The hop bitterness kind of appears in the mids. Um, More or less clears by the finish. Doesn't quite clean the palate. There's still a residual sweetness there. But more or less, it finishes more or less clean. Okay, onto the Hawaineken. Now that more or less finishes clean as a whistle. Just a slight bit of that floral hopping in the top note of the finish. Up front, got crackery malts, hop bitterness, as well as, hop bitterness, but not outstanding hop bitterness, much more old world. You definitely get those floral notes in the top note on the front, and maybe a little bit into the mids. Definitely clears off the palate by the finish. Hop bitterness is maybe slightly resinous. Yeah. Okay. There's also that minerality there. Actually, it's kind of a striking minerality up front. Now that I think about it, so, I'm so focused in on like how these compare that I kind of am missing out on something that's completely absent from the Heineken, but is quite apparent in the Hawaineken. Okay, returning back to the Heineken. Even though this came in a can, it still kind of tastes like mildly skunky. It's almost like they put a little bit of skunk into it because that's what people expect when they drink a Heineken. Now, it's nowhere near as skunky as like one that's been in a glass bottle that's been sitting outside, sitting on a store shelf for a while, but it does still seem to have a little bit of skunk to it. There's none of that skunkiness at all in the Hawaiian. And I have to say, though, you could give this to somebody who doesn't really drink beers at all and put it side by side and have them taste it side by side. They'd be able to discern it. I'd say the difference is that stark that somebody who is not a super taster could still do a blind on this one. So, yeah. That said, they're still basically pale lagers. One is really comes across as a mass market pale lager, and one that's in the Euro tradition, so not as dry and a bit sweeter than American mass market lagers. So I guess a Euro pale lager for the Heineken. And this one comes across as a craft lager, in which there is much more dimensionality to an interplay between the hopping and the malting. That's one thing I've always noticed about macro lagers, whether they be American or European, is that, or even Japanese, is that the hopping and malting kind of mushes into a single taste, more or less. It doesn't, you don't really discern it, the various elements of the taste that much, even though they're both of these are not incredibly complex beers. This one pops quite a bit more. Of course, being lagers, pale lagers, they're not going to be like amazingly complex, but what is in the Hawaiian definitely shows itself, displays itself, is much brighter and distinct. Yeah, as it warms up, the sweetness and the slight skunkiness of the Heineken are definitely showing themselves a little bit more. As the Heineken warms up, just an ever so subtle, um, mildly fruity note is starting to show up. but is not so broad as to, be sort of like a flaw, I would venture. And it still comes across very lager-like. It is a lager, so it should come across as lager-like. Now, 15 minutes in, let's go to the summation, because I think I kind of talked about this one enough. And honestly, if I could focus a little bit better, I could probably. I am just so tired. I can, I'm all over the place mentally. So, I much prefer the craft beer here from Kalihi Beer, Hawaineken. But at the same time, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about price point. A 12 pack of Heineken, and apparently I just flicked some beer across my room. So, a 12 pack of Heineken costs about the same as, well, I'd say the 12 pack of Heineken is slightly more expensive than the 4 pack of Hawaineken. Now, some of this, of course, is just, craft beer pricing versus mass market pricing. But I just find it really interesting, So these, of course, are being tall boys. They come in 4 packs. So, see here, I'm trying to do the math in my head right now, which I suck at. So, 4 pack would be 64 ounces of beer. 12 pack at 12 ounces would be 134 ounces of beer. So literally, you get nearly twice as much beer at the same price. And right now I'm trying to think of, is that worth it in my head? Because like I said, I didn't really think about it in terms of like exact price, where the craft beer is literally nearly twice as much for well, you pay nearly the same price for basically what's half the amount of beer. And I'm trying to wonder, is it really worth it? Honestly, I have to say it's situational. If I'm just going to be at a family party or something like that, I learned long ago, don't bring craft beer to family parties. It's not worth it. It's not worth it, really. I think I'm the only one that really truly appreciates it. Well, my dad did, but he don't drink anymore. So kind of like, I'd be wasting my time if I'm buying for a bunch of people. If I'm buying for myself, and I would say, yeah, I would go with the Hawaiian. I'm not that poor where I'm just going to buy by bulk yet. I'd have to say in regards to myself. Yeah. Oh, forgot to mention 5.0, 4.8, roughly about the same body, more or less. So light, I wouldn't say light, but refreshing. And not watery, but no heft to it really. It's supposed to be a refreshing beer. So, Hawaineken from Kalihi Beer versus Heineken. And again, in this review, I explained why they call it Hawaineken. Heineken is the most popular beer in Hawaii. They don't even really call it like Heineken. You say, hey, can you give me one of the green bottles? And, everyone will know what you're talking about. And yeah, that's sort of the conclusion for this comparison review. That's 20 minutes. I could have really condensed this, and I'm debating if I should start editing my videos, for the stuff like where I go and grab water and crap like that. But yeah, I don't know. If you care, leave a comment, or don't. And yeah, that is your beer comparison review for this afternoon. Cheers.